Welcome to this edition of Heartland Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. Today, as you can tell, we're outside the studio in Lake Wales. We're at the Lake Wales Police Department, where we'll be speaking with Chief Chris Velasquez and Officer Dale Hampton over the use of canines in law enforcement. So stick with us. We're going to have an interesting show. Chief, glad to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Chip.
Now, canines are really a valuable tool for law enforcement, aren't they?
They absolutely are. When we think about our canine unit, we think about officer safety. We think about safety of the public. A canine is able to give us that force and that ability to get out into a location and not jeopardize the safety of an officer. We've had a number of different occasions where the canines have actually helped us and prevented us from becoming injured in a situation. We've also had a number of scenarios where they've helped us in tracking situations. And when you think about that right there, that pays for itself when you look at the canine and look at the value of one. Our canines handle patrol duties, which are apprehension, tracking. They also handle narcotic detection. When you think about narcotic detection, you think about somebody cooking. If, for instance, if you walk into a house and somebody's cooking spaghetti, we say, hey, there's spaghetti cooking. Well, when a canine walks in, the canine says, wow, oregano, tomatoes, basil, garlic. Their noses are so powerful, it's phenomenal how they can actually detect things that the human nose could never detect. So very, very valuable and very helpful in our community and countywide.
Absolutely. You talk about, I've heard 300 or 400 times more sensitive their nose for things, and it's amazing what they can pick up that the human just can't pick up. Now, you've had canines in Lake Wales for quite a while now, and understand you might have had a little bit to do with that.
Well, I was actually the first handler that we had at the Lake Wales Police Department. It was in late '96 when we learned that there was a canine dog that was available, quote, for adoption, per se. And we were able to talk the chief at the time into supporting that program and that initiative. And I was the one that ended up going to school. I went to Sarasota County and trained with the sheriff's office there. And I was there for quite a while. I did narcotic detection. That was my function with that dog. As time went on, we were actually able to add additional dogs, and from probably about a year later from that time period, we went to 4 dogs, and now we have 4 working patrol dogs on at all times. We have 2 Belgian Malinois, and we have 2 German Shepherds. So we've got it covered very well, and again, we work very well and help not only the residents of our city, but also throughout the entire county. We work as a team, and without teamwork, we wouldn't be the successful county that we are today.
Yeah, like you say, the one thing you talked about earlier was the officer safety. So many times just saying, Lake Wales Police Department, step out of the building. If not, I'm going to release the canine unit. Is a very effective tool to have at your disposal, knowing that a lot of folks, once they hear the dogs or have that warning, they know their options are going to be pretty much reduced to that point. Either come out and be arrested without incident, or have the dog come in and probably get dog bit.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned in the beginning, it's that level of force that we don't have to actually go hands-on with. A lot of the time when the officer pulls that canine out, or just having that canine vehicle in the area, when a suspect sees that, they know that their chances of getting away, if they're going to try to take flight, are going to be slim to none. It also helps just gain a little more compliance, a little more cooperation. But not only that, we look at that application, but the human relations and the PR aspect of it is incredible. The dogs are great. The dogs they're very friendly. They actually stay with the handlers, go home with the handlers every day. So they're very manageable, and they're very friendly as long as they're not in work mode. And they do great in the schools. They do great in our retirement communities. We take them out and do demonstrations very frequently. And it's just a great public relations tool. Everybody loves the canines, and we love the fact that we have all that great support.
Yeah, and you talked about how the dogs actually have two speeds, or two gears, if you will. They can certainly tell, you know, when the lights and sirens come on, or when their handler is getting dressed to go to work. They know that they're going to the office, that it's their day to work. And just like the rest of us, you know, when 5 o'clock rings, of course, for canine handlers, it's not always 5 o'clock. Typically, they're on evenings or nights. But they know it's time to go home and relax and watch TV with daddy, so to speak.
That's right. They definitely know when it's time to relax and when it's time to go to work. As soon as they see the handler start getting ready, they automatically go into work mode. Just like you mentioned also, just to reemphasize, they get so in tune with the vehicles that they can actually hear when the emergency lights are activated. And of course, lights don't make noise, but the switches do. And the dogs have actually learned to be able to respond to that. When they hear those lights being turned on, they start perking up, and they know that it's getting ready to be time, or possibly time, to go to work. So and the thing is that they love to work. That's the only thing that keeps them moving and functioning every day is the desire to make that handler happy. That's all they want to do, is make the handler happy. And it's amazing when you stand and watch them, whether it's an apprehension, whether it's a search, a track, or a drug find when they're doing a vehicle search. It's amazing, and it's so hard to control your emotions, because you can't help but smile when you watch them, because they're just so strong, they're so powerful, and they're so smart. There's really no way to get around them. You can fool a human being a lot easier than you can fool a canine.
That's what I was thinking as well. You know, a lot of times when they talk to an officer, or a suspect does, they try to snow, or they try to, you know, mislead. You can't mislead a dog on the things that he's trained at, and that's a big investment for your agency. I mean, the dogs themselves are what, $10,000 and more sometimes, but just the time that it takes to train the officer, and the ongoing training throughout, you know, the month or the week. I mean, basically the dogs are in training every day of the week.
Absolutely. There is a significant cost to actually purchasing the dog. The equipment, you know, a police package vehicle equipped for a canine is significantly more. There is a cost, but overall, at the end of the day, the benefits far outweigh that cost. We definitely, you know, pay attention to that. But again, they have to train constantly. And like you said, even when they're out working their daily shift, whenever those handlers get a break or an opportunity, they get a break, but they actually start training and working with their canines again. So constant training, constant maintenance, and you know, we have vet. You know, have to take the dogs to a vet. We have to feed them. We have to do a lot with them. But again, it's very, very well worth it. And when you look at the return and what we actually can get out of the canines and the value that they provide us, it's very well worth it.
Absolutely. And you talked about it. The dog doesn't know that it's working. To the dog, they're having fun. You know, that's what they like to do. They enjoy it, and it shows in the work that they're able to do. And then I remember, you know, from years ago, and having to search buildings, you know, with no canine, the danger level is still there even with the canine, but they're able to see and hear and smell things and alert the handlers, alert the other officers. That it's just such a valuable tool that I just can't imagine an agency not having a dog.
I couldn't either. We've been very, very blessed with our canines. We've been very happy with them, and you know, we've gone through tough times over the years as far as financial terms, but we've always held on to our canines, and it's a resource that we really can't do without now. We've looked at it. There's been times that we've looked at the cost benefit of it, and every time we do, the benefit far outweighs the cost. We're very, very proud of our canines. If I could teach the canines to do interviews, or to package evidence, or do some other functions, I think I'd be happier. But I'm always trying to get more out of what we have. But having the 4 canines that we have, we're very proud of them, and we wouldn't want to work without them.
Absolutely. Well, Chief, thank you for taking time out of your busy day on this hot summer day. We appreciate it, and looking forward to getting some more information from Officer Dale Hampton on canines.
Thank you, Chip. I appreciate it.
We're going to take a look now at our unsolved cases and wanted persons. If you have any information on any of these cases, please call Heartland Crime Stoppers at 1-800-226-TIPS. That's 1-800-226-8477. You will remain completely anonymous, and if your tip results in an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of narcotics, you'll be eligible for a cash reward of up to $3,000.
Polk County Sheriff's Office needs your help with an armed personal robbery investigation. At 11:45 on Sunday, June 26th, the victims were walking in the area of Elliott Lane and Stevenson Road Southeast when they were approached by an unknown male suspect in a silver four-door SUV. He exited the rear of the vehicle, approached one of the victims, pointed a silver-color firearm at him, and robbed him. The suspect also struck the victim with the gun. A second suspect exited the SUV and also battered the victim. The suspects then fled in the SUV, heading south on Driscoll Lane. The victim's stolen credit card was then used at a McDonald's located at US 92 and Cumbie. Video surveillance photos from the McDonald's can be seen here. The suspects are described as a Hispanic male, 6 foot to 6'3" tall, wearing a red hoodie, white t-shirt, and blue jeans, armed with a silver-colored handgun, and the white male with a beard, 5'10" to 6 foot tall, wearing a dark-colored short-sleeve shirt and blue jeans. Anyone who wants to remain anonymous and be eligible for a cash reward is asked to call Heartland Crime Stoppers. The Polk County Sheriff's Office detectives are asking for the public's help in a burglary and grand theft investigation. Sometime between May 20th and June 2nd, an unknown suspect or suspects entered the property where the garage and a shed of a residence are located in the 5000 block of Shepherd Road. Now, video surveillance captured the images of a single male suspect entering the property on multiple occasions, but detectives believe that there are several suspects involved. Anyone with information who wants to remain anonymous and be eligible for a cash reward is asked to call Heartland Crime Stoppers. Do you know this suspect? Well, the Lake Wales Police Department needs your help in nabbing him. He's wanted for using a stolen credit card 4 times in Lake Wales. If you know who he is, please call Heartland Crime Stoppers. Keep in mind that a cash reward is yours if the tip results in his arrest. The Lakeland Police Department could use your help in nabbing these fraud suspects from Lakeland. Leave an anonymous tip at Heartland Crime Stoppers or click on our Give a Tip tab at heartlandcrimestoppers.com. At approximately 3 p.m. on Monday, June 20th, 2016, the suspect seen here stole a Mongoose bicycle from 2408 Hamlet Circle in unincorporated Lakeland. One suspect removed the bicycle from the victim's garage while the other stood as a lookout. One of the suspects appears to be a juvenile black male, 12 to 15 years old, wearing blue shorts and a blue t-shirt. The other suspect is wearing green shorts and a red t-shirt. Now, they both can be seen here in video surveillance photos. Anyone with information about this investigation is urged to contact Detective Kane at 863-577-1625, or you can remain anonymous and be eligible for a cash reward and call Heartland Crime Stoppers, or go to the website and click on the Give a Tip tab. Winter Haven Police Department needs your help in identifying the male in this video after he snatched a purse from a 62-year-old woman who was shopping at Belk's on June 23, 2016 at approximately 11:53 a.m. The victim entered the store and a short distance inside encountered the suspect. The suspect is a black male, late teens to early 20s, wearing a black t-shirt, black basketball-style pants, and plaid boxers and slides. Anyone with information on the identity of the suspect is asked to call Heartland Crime Stoppers at 800-226-TIPS.
Welcome back to Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. With us now is Officer Dale Hampton of the Lake Wales Police Department, and Dale is one of their canine handlers. Dale, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chip.
Now, you have been a canine handler for Lake Wales for how long now?
9 years I've been in the K9 unit.
That's a lot of learning, a lot of time out in the hot sun, isn't it?
Yes, sir. 800 hours of training, and then 22 hours a month of training, and then on top of that, working with the dog and at home with him. So a lot of time spent with the dog in 9 years.
Yeah, that training never ends. Now, tell us a little bit about you. How did you get into law enforcement? And obviously, when you started with Lake Wales, they didn't hire you and give you a dog. Tell us how you got into law enforcement.
I always wanted to be a police officer since childhood. Once I reached 18, I said, this is what I want to do. I joined the military. I was in the Marine Corps. After the Marine Corps, I worked at the mines for a little bit, and then I finally said, I want to do it. I'm going to do it. Got into law enforcement, went to the police academy, checked around at a few agencies. I really liked Lake Wales. I joined Lake Wales in 2004 and worked there 3 years, worked in the narcotics unit, worked patrol, and I said, well, I definitely want canine. So I told the admin that's what I wanted, and once they gave me my dog, I just went from there with it and joined worked hard to get to the USPCA, which is a national organization, and Napawata, and excuse me, of course the FDLE. So on top of all that, a lot of training.
Now, you didn't just walk into the chief's office one day and say, Chief Velasquez, I want to be a canine handler, and he didn't say, you know, that's a good idea, here's the keys to the dog. There's a long process to get to that point, and a number of steps you have to climb to get there, isn't it?
That's correct. At our agency, you have to have a minimum of 3 years before you can join a special unit. The canine unit is one of our special units. Your annual evaluation has to be above average. You have to be an officer that excels. You don't need. They're looking for people that's not needing to be guided, supervised. Basically, you just have to be an above average officer before you're even considered for the canine unit. Once you've passed all of that, then there's criteria you have to meet with certain classes that you have to be an officer to. So it's kind of like a promotion there. And then on top of that, you go through a process of interviewing, and it's interviewed by the peers of the canine. Once you pass that and you're selected as one of the 4, then you'll go in front of the admin board. And then once the admin says, these are the 2 officers that I want, then the chief will make the ultimate decision on the officer that gets the canine unit. And normally, there's not an opening in the canine unit unless somebody retires, because it's such an awesome unit to work in.
Absolutely. That's one of the positions that somebody, once they get in there, they've worked so hard and the rewards are so great that they just don't want to give it up. So now, this is not your first dog that you have here, is it?
Correct. This is my actual 4th dog since I've been in canine.
Yeah, I know that we talked earlier about when the dog, gets to a certain age, they retire, and that's awfully hard because you're giving up a family member, because this dog not only lives with you but works with you and is a family pet in most cases.
Yes, sir. The dog, we work 185 hours a month. The dog comes to work with us. He goes home with us. On top of that, like I said, we train 22 hours a month, and then on top of that, when we're at home during the day, if you're out back having a cookout, whatever, the dog is there with you. So you're always with the dog. The dog, he's not really a pet. He is our backup. I mean, he never thinks twice about coming out of the car. Many times I've been in fights. I hit my door popper. The dog comes out. He doesn't think twice, and he engages. It's just a bond that it's not even able to be explained unless you've been there and can feel it.
Well, you're actually, it's like in many parts of the military, you're in battle in many cases with these, and you're literally, your life is dependent upon your backup. In your case, and most times it's going to be your canine unit, if not your officers, and that bond is so strong that unless you have actually lived it and experienced it, most folks don't understand or comprehend that.
No. Out here, it is a battle every day, fighting crime. A lot of guys, they've been to prison. The judge tells them if you come back in front of me again, you're going to go to prison for more years. So when we do corner up an armed robbery suspect out in the woods, or a child molester that we've tracked 3 miles and found, they're either going to fight or take flight. It's one of the two. And many times they decide to fight. Even after we give the canine warnings, give yourself up, or a canine will be apprehending you. they want to take that risk because they don't want to go back to prison. So it's an everyday battle with the crime.
And again, that's a safety issue for the officers, because if the dog wasn't going in to get them out, somebody with a gun's going to have to go in there and physically search it, and the propensity for someone being hurt, the officer being hurt, or being the suspect being hurt worse, is so much greater that it's just such a valuable tool.
Yes, when we have a burglary with forced entry, or we have a subject that takes off running from the car and he goes out in the woods, or it was a shooting to where he's fled, we don't have to send an officer in to make physical contact with this armed subject. We strap a bulletproof vest on the dog. If the conditions are right, we send the dog in. We give the warnings before. We ask the suspect to surrender. Half the time, or more than half the time, the helicopters above illuminating the area. We try to get them to surrender. If they make the choice, we send the dog in. If we hear them yell, or whatever the case may be, we go in. The dog will be making contact, and 99% of the time, the fight's over after that.
Yeah, I know, just having taken some hits from the dog with a sleeve, the force that they can exert is certainly memorable.
Yes, sir. Some people call them the fur missile. So they definitely deliver a shock when they hit you.
Now, there are other instances that you use the K9 not only to apprehend bad guys, but we talked about it earlier before we started taping. We're tracking, and as you track, they are trained to track differently as opposed to being released and apprehend. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, the last thing that we want to do is to use the force of putting a dog on somebody. We use the dog for missing persons. We have quite a bit of retirement homes here in the city of Lake Wales. So sometimes we get Alzheimer patients that'll come up missing. We track them down. The last thing the dog's going to do is engage and make bite contact. They're trained to go up to, which they don't know the difference between a child or a elder person or a suspect. It's a person that they're out there to track. Once they find them, they're actually looking for the toy coming from the bad guy. So once we find the person or suspect or elder person that we're looking for, either he's going to get the toy or he'll start barking at him. If the subject surrenders, which if it was a suspect, shows his hands, everything's compliant, then we hold him, and then our backup officer puts him in handcuffs. If it's a kid, we praise the dog up. As soon as we get back to the car, normally it's like a sandwich from the local store or steak from IHOP. But any find that we get on the street, we always reward a dog with a lot of play and some kind of special food that they rarely get.
Yeah, that's, as we talked earlier to Chief Velasquez, the dog doesn't know it's working. To the dog, they're playing and having a good time.
Yes, everything that we do is for him, it's play. He loves to come to work. I love to come to work, but he really, really loves to come to work. If I'm out of the car, normally he's spinning around in the back of the car the whole time until we get out, and he's just waiting on the command. Tail wagging, all he wants to do is just please me. And so everything we do, if it's narcotic detection, he's wanting his toy. As soon as he smells the odor of narcotics, he don't know that he's looking for drugs. He thinks that drug is the toy. That smell is his toys fixing to come. So everything is play for him.
One of the biggest challenges that I've heard and seen with officers and K9, especially new handlers, certainly there's a lot of training that has to go into the dog, 800 and something hours?
880 hours.
But also, one of the biggest obstacles is to bond with the dog, but let the dog train you as to what he's trying to tell you.
Yes, there's many times where we show up on a scene and we ask the officer, okay, what do you have? The officer says, okay, I pulled up on this burglary and the bad guy took off that way. We get there and we want to trust our officer, but sometimes the officer just sees something that maybe he didn't see. We'll put the dog out and try to guide him the way that the officer told us that they went, and the dog's saying no, the guy went this way. He's not verbally saying it, but he'll sometimes look back and bark if we're pulling him off, or he's digging towards the way that he knows the bad guy went. So basically it's get the dog out, put the leash on him, and follow him, and he'll tell you what's going on.
I remember years ago when I was riding literally shotgun, we were tracking a bank robbery, and one of our K9 handlers, Bill Carew, and his dog, we were tracking through some woods, and we're looking for this bank robber that the aircraft had tracked down and was following, and the dog starts digging at the ground, and he's trying to pull the dog off, and then we stop and look, and the guy had actually burrowed under a bunch of shrubs that we were literally standing on top of the guy, and it hadn't been for the canine, never would have found him. So reading your dog is very, very important. Probably, what, 50% of what you do?
Yes, actually, I would probably go with more than that. When we get him out to do a drug search, for instance, we can't smell the drug, and the dog, you know, when he goes around the car, he'll give his indications. The ears come up, the body becomes rigid. Sometimes the tail will come up, and then he gives his conditional response by sitting. And then, so you know, you just basically trust your dog.
Now, you've just come back for a lot of competitions, and you did fairly well in the most recent ones, didn't you?
Yes, this dog, Canine Badge, he came in second in the nation with the United States Police Canine Association, and this year with the regional state trial, which was held in Pensacola, for the interdepartment team, he was one that placed first in the state.
So I know that makes a daddy really proud, because that's your child, basically. That's your partner, and it just shows a lot of the work and dedication that not only that you have put, that you continue to put forward in this.
Yes, it's nice to see when you put that many hours every month, and you train, and then when it's needed, when you track somebody down, or when a bad guy takes off running, or you track this little kid that's been missing for 3 hours, and mom and dad's, you know, beside herself worried, and you track them and you find them and you carry that child back to the person or the mom, that feeling to know that what them hours of training you put in and you get that reward back is you can't describe the feeling.
We talked earlier too, and I asked you to think about your most memorable case, the one that maybe not your biggest case, but the one that really gave you that personal feeling of satisfaction that this is what it's all about. Do you have that case come to your mind?
I have many. I know we're short for time. Just recently, we had a serial robber here in Lake Wells. He had robbed 3 times, and he was on his 4th one. He hit the store. I tracked him down about a little over a mile. We found the guy, gave him the option to surrender, and he chose not to surrender, looks back at me and the canine and takes flight. I released the dog from his leash, and just a few seconds later, he made bite contact with the subject, and we closed the case. The guy admitted to everything. It's just an overwhelming feeling to know that we tracked this armed robber down, put him in custody, and basically, you know, solved the crime just with the nose of the canine.
Yeah, and this particular armed robbery, serial robbery, I know that he was escalating his violence in each one, and if he hadn't been caught, there was a very good possibility that somebody was going to get seriously injured, perhaps killed in one of his escapades. Yes,
every one of them did he did escalate everything using a firearm to just doing it in broad daylight. Like there'd be customers present, and he had no fear. So it was nice being able to get him behind bars.
Well, Officer Hampton, thank you for your time today. We appreciate all the work that you've done for Lake Wells Police Department and for Polk County. Congratulations on being second in the nation and also the first in the state. We appreciate the hard work. I know you're proud of your dog, and I know the day was the dog's day off. You said, we talked earlier, that he couldn't understand this morning when you started getting your vest on and your uniform, that this was his day off, you know, and then he started whining because he's a boy, I get to go and have some fun today.
Yes, sir. And I thank y'all very much for coming out here.
Okay, Dale, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for this edition of the Heartland Crime Stopper Show. We want to give a special thanks to the Lake Wells Police Department and the K-9 unit for all the work that they do. If you have any information on the unsolved crime or ongoing criminal activity, please contact Heartland Crime Stoppers at 1-800-226-8477. Remember, it's a crime, and you can help make sure they don't get away with it.